James Freeman flees from the Lexington Takeover as Ron Durbin goes to the hospital, then to jail. Denver Metro Audits in denial as his conviction was upheld, refuses to get a job or accept probation. All of Floyd Wallace's girls in Colombia find out about his real YouTube page. Plus, Audit Them threatens to sue everyone. All this and more on this episode of Auditing Insanity. Good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Auditing Insanity Newscast. I'm Jim Finch and we've got some big stories on Denver Metro Audits, Floyd Wallace, Audit Them, and the Lexington Takeover. Since we've got so much to go over tonight, we'll do this fast as we ask you to focus on... DMA loses appeal, will refuse federal probation. Christopher, Denver Metro Audits Cordova, lost his federal appeal on Tuesday of his conviction of charges of ignoring official signage and recording in a restricted area at a Denver area Social Security Administration building in 2022. As previously reported, Cordova was arrested in 2022 during a mass gathering of auditors and in the presence of Delete Law's Jose Chile de Castro, who played a part in encouraging him to cross the threshold into the restricted area to earn his arrest. Cordova's trial was held in 2023 with a guilty verdict early in the year, stretched into a lengthy sentencing delay orchestrated by Cordova's attorney. During that period, Cordova was arrested 2 more times, which he says impacted his sentencing. He was ultimately sentenced to 2 years probation, $3,000 fine, and 15 days in federal prison. Cordova immediately appealed the sentencing, which has taken a year to be ruled on by a federal appeals court. In the end, Judge Nina Wang affirmed Cordova's convictions and sent the case back to Chief United States Magistrate Judge Michael E. Hagerty for execution of the sentence next week. Cordova was waiting for the release from jail of fellow auditor Mars Life when he received the news. Mars Life, who lives in his car, was arrested for trespassing and littering Monday night in Boulder, Colorado, after several warnings to move his car off of private property. The YouTuber reacted to the ruling by stating that he would refuse federal probation and instead insist that he serve the maximum 30-day jail sentence for his charges. He also said that he would not get a job as a condition of the probation, as his self-employment as an auditor would suffice as a full-time job. According to Frauditor Trolls reporting, Cordova must appear before the original judge in the case for further instructions on October 22, 2024. Cordova made a direct appeal to his fans Tuesday night to contribute to his GoFundMe to reimburse him the $500 he spent on bonding out Mars Life. His pleas went unanswered as he failed to pull in any donations to his GoFundMe account overnight. Our own GoFundMe campaign won Tuesday with a $20 donation. We still need your help. ReallyCoolSite.org and the Auditing Insanity Newscast are funded by your donations, along with what little we make from YouTube each month. While we did achieve full monetization on YouTube, we still need your help to get through monthly expenses and keeping the lights on to bring you the paper and newscast each day. If you can afford it, please consider donating to the GoFundMe run by this very channel. All proceeds literally go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the ads on our videos. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in. Audit Them to sue everyone, announces lawsuit. YouTuber Audit Them went live on his YouTube channel on Tuesday, claiming that he'll be filing a mass lawsuit, naming up to 45 to 60 people who have been involved in an apparent conspiracy to harass him over the past 4 years. The YouTuber said that he planned to legally dox and legally slander anyone involved in the conspiracy, including those who allegedly sent emails to government agencies about interactions he had with the agencies. Indicating that he's put a dossier together over the past 4 years, he claimed to have FOIA records of everyone who has ever communicated anything about him with the agencies and centered on 10 to 15 people he claimed who had reached out directly to government agencies to complain that he was representing himself as a public official. Elaborating further on his plans, he said he would be naming 5 to 6 main anti-auditing channels and up to 75 subscribers to the channels in the lawsuit. He also claimed some of the accusers were trolls who are paid by the government to troll as part of the community service process. Becoming enraged at those he perceived as trolls, he promised he would contact the workplaces of everyone involved in the supposed conspiracy against him and expose them as child molesters and serial killers. When someone criticized his idea for the mass lawsuit and questioned his status as an American, Audit Them threatened to look up the person's information and add them to his lawsuit. It's unclear what motivated the YouTuber's latest tirade or his change from relatively harmless master of the FOIA requests to a hardened champion of anti-trolling, armed with his notarized enemies list and plans for mass lawsuits. Audit Them has been best known for his ongoing feuds with Frauditor Troll and Dr. Dave over the years, going so far as to threaten lawsuits against both men in the past that went nowhere. His most recent target has been Flat Derp, who has produced various videos focusing on Audit Them's alleged strange antics during his audits. Casual observers were surprised by Audit Them's change in tone, as more recently he's developed a series of videos where he's been taken seriously by the government offices he has been auditing. Though questions remain when he is asked if he is from a government agency, and he responds with a scripted line that, "Today I am representing myself. Today." There also tends to be some confusion when he states that he is sending his self-made reports to the Illinois Attorney General. His tone tends to indicate that he is indeed working for the Attorney General, along with his claims that he soon may be in office. Otherwise, his more recent audits have been fairly benign, and our coverage has reflected his recent adaptation of his style. We will continue to monitor his lawsuit threat as more information becomes available. Floyd Wallace in trouble, the girls learn the truth. The mystery of the reasoning behind the wiping of YouTuber Floyd Wallace's YouTube page was revealed by Wallace on Tuesday, as he said that 3 of the women he had been romantically involved with in Colombia had apparently found his YouTube channel. In the now private video, Wallace revealed that he was no longer friends with the woman known as the Stud, who he had said had previously agreed to be his driver for his next sex tour of the country, after she had discovered his YouTube page and apparently his extensive negative comments about her. Wallace had previously savaged her appearance, saying that he would only feature pretty women on his channel in Colombia after his fans criticized her masculine appearance. On more recent videos, again now deleted, Wallace had defended the Stud as a nice person, and having enjoyed romantic encounters with her, along with her willingness to cook, clean, and drive him around the country. The two had a major fight at the end of his last trip to Colombia after he had invited her to a tourist destination after another woman had canceled on him, and he was not comfortable with her spending time with her family in the area instead of with him. The two had a major fight on his last day in the country over her being late to their planned date at a tourist attraction, and she was not mentioned again until he solidified his current planned trip back to the country. Wallace also indicated that the 2 other women, including the woman he had said on multiple occasions he had intended to impregnate on his trip with or without her consent, had also ended their relationships with the YouTuber. While the Stud apparently has learned his real name, it is unclear if the other women have learned that he uses the alias Terry Wilson while traveling, and if they now know his real identity. In more Wallace news, Wallace said that now that his main fine from a Texas case was paid, he would be able to travel overseas immediately. However, his probation officer revealed that there was a second set of fines for probation that needed to be paid that he claimed he did not know about. Wallace immediately began a fundraising campaign for the $360 he said he needed to pay his probation fees, but warned that he was unable to pay the fees all at once, so he would be paying in increments spaced out over the rest of his probation. Addressing his upcoming blind plea deal in Oklahoma on November 12, 2024, he again stated that he was planning to fire his current lawyer, then demanding a jury trial to get a continuance in the case. With the demand, he figured he'd have at least 2 months of unfettered travel time on his next sex tour of Colombia, despite his setbacks with the women he intended to romance. Wallace immediately privatized the live stream after criticism of his latest fundraising campaign by his audience. Freeman abandons Lexington Takeover. After a chaotic day on Tuesday, the so-called Lexington Takeover of Lexington, Mississippi was dealt 2 major blows as organizer Ron Durbin of the Guerrilla Publishing YouTube channel was hospitalized while being detained by police, and superstar auditor James Freeman apparently left the cause to drive another auditor back to Oklahoma. The day started with a group going from town to town in the Lexington area, recording in as many public buildings as possible, and essentially making a circuit of going to each town's police department and city hall, ending with a visit to the city's mayor's office. One such visit happened in Jackson, Mississippi earlier in the day. The group tried to enter the police station, but were stopped at security due to a rule that requires ID to be shown before entering the building. Ron Durbin immediately escalated the situation with the police officers manning the security station, reading a sign saying that someone without ID can be escorted through the building by an officer upon request. He was about to argue that point when he and another auditor inexplicably left the building and decided to go across the street to City Hall. Upon entering City Hall, Durbin and friend asked the person at the front desk where the mayor's office was, and eventually left a message with the mayor's assistant to complain about the policy requiring ID to enter the police station. Durbin then walked into the city council chambers, where he encountered a local news crew waiting for the city council meeting that was scheduled to start. A local reporter made small talk with Durbin until Durbin went into his rants, and the local reporter said he wasn't going to play Durbin's game. Quickly enraged, Durbin began to berate the man and follow the man through the building, hurling insults at him and saying that he had every right to film him wherever he went. When the man went down a flight of stairs, Ron balked, sending another auditor to follow the man while he left the building and ended the live stream soon after. Later in the day, now in Pearl, Mississippi, Ron allegedly had a similar encounter with the mayor's assistant in the mayor's office. The assistant asked not to be filmed. Ron escalated, and the assistant called the police. Ron was being detained by the chief of police for suspicion of disturbing the peace when he began to suffer chest pains. An ambulance arrived on the scene shortly after, and Ron was taken to the hospital across county lines. James Freeman stayed with the police chief, who said that if a judge signed off on a warrant for Ron's arrest, he'd arrest Ron once Ron was done at the hospital. Ron was admitted to the hospital, and there was apparently a police presence at the hospital in case Ron was released. Freeman and an auditor named Sean, who had been closely associated with Ron, left for Lexington, which was 90 minutes away from the hospital. They were going to the city council meeting where the fate of Officer Edward Scott Walters' employment was to be decided. The pair were a few minutes away from the meeting when Ron called to summon Sean, who was driving Ron's truck, back to the hospital. Ron wanted to work on details of finding a bail bondsman, as a warrant had been issued for his arrest, and bail was set at $20,000. Sean refused to make the return trip as it would strand Freeman at the meeting. When the council went into executive session, Freeman, Sean, and everyone else in the audience were sent out to wait until the council reopened to the public. During that time, Sean found a bail bondsman who was on site and arranged to hire her to pay the bond, recording her information to send to Ron. Freeman and Sean left the meeting when Freeman's phone began to die, and the pair returned to the hospital. The city council did not announce the fate of Walters at the meeting. When the pair visited Ron in his room, Sean and Ron got into a loud argument over hiring the bail bondsman from Lexington when Ron wanted someone who was local without the 90-minute drive. Sean refused to let Ron talk to the woman, instead playing Ron the video the woman made at the city council meeting. Sean and Freeman wanted to go back to the campsite. Lee agreed to drive them. When they got to the campsite, Freeman left in Freeman's vehicle, with Freeman stating he was going to drive Sean home to Oklahoma, and the pair were gone. In the last update, Lee was on his way back to see his father in the hospital Wednesday morning, promising to live stream from the hospital once his father was released. First update. Ron livestreamed for the hospital with an update on his medical condition. He said that he is facing charge of disturbing the peace and trespassing. The cardiologist has put him on new medicine to help him with an existing heart condition. They wanted to keep him at the hospital for a cardiac catheterization, but he refused to stay. He made it clear that he has no issues with James Freeman, who left to take Sean home, as he said Sean was afraid of being arrested in Pearl, Mississippi. He says he has no reason to be angry at anyone at this time. Second update. Ron was released from the hospital a little after 3 p.m. local time and then taken into custody by Pearl police officers and transferred to the Pearl police station. Once at the station, the bail bondsman was waiting for Ron, and he was released without incident. Third update, Ron was released from jail around 4 p.m. Eastern. He clarified that Sean fled because he was told by the Pearl police chief that he would be arrested if he did not stop calling the Pearl Police Department for no reason. Ron announced that he'll be fighting the charges. He will also be suing the Pearl and Lexington police forces. Officer Edward Scott Walters was apparently suspended from the Lexington police force. We'll have full updates on tomorrow's edition of the Auditing Insanity Newscast and the daily newspaper at ReallyCoolSite.org. And we're back. Again, this is one of the busiest days in recent memory with news stories breaking every few minutes. We had to bump a Long Island audit story till tomorrow, and we didn't even have a filler story about Chile de Castro for once. What the what? We're now at a legitimate 6 pages in Word, as I call it a night and stop typing. Have a great night all, and we'll see you tomorrow.